oboe stop. So we're going to listen to Organ Voluntary number 8 by George Calkin, performed by Craig Coyle. And good morning. We'll talk to you in a moment. Thank you to Craig for voluntarily doing that. So, briefly, you may wonder why the streets closed, because the streets closed. And we received a call, I received a text actually from the Parks Commissioner that they were going to close the street at 11 because of the Hispanic parade today. Then they updated it, they wanted the street closed at 9. So obviously you're not parked on Main Street because you can't. But it will be easy to get out of here anyway, even if the place fills up. I'm confident that the parade begins at noon. So if you want to stick around for it, it's usually a very interesting, great place to sit and watch. It is right out front here. So here comes the guys who are going to be playing a song in a minute. But before he does, this week, just FYI, I'm going to be going to do a workshop at Lake George, sponsored by the Presbyterian Synod of the Northeast. They have something called an Early Ministry Institute, and they asked me to come and speak to them and do a workshop with them for the clergy persons who are in their first 3 to 4 years of ministry or brand new, and also chaplains that have been doing chaplaincy in hospitals or schools or whatever in the early institute. And the reason why is because the Synod of the Presbyterian Church of the United States has determined that people coming into parishes and into hospitals as clergy or as chaplains are radically unprepared for the loneliness that they encounter. And as you know, I have a new book out called The Gospel of Loneliness, and it's just like, how do you deal with loneliness that people see in a congregational setting? The good old days, when the pews were all full and everybody was like much younger and there was a more optimistic beat or whatever, or lonely for a partner or a child, that not necessarily that somebody has passed away, but like my son's moving to Chicago to get a master's, MBA, Master of Business Administration. My daughter lives in San Francisco, so it's lonely sometimes. But just how do you deal with that? Because seminaries and chaplaincy programs act like it doesn't exist. It's just not there. So that it's interesting that they're doing that. And then the following week, I will be, here's Deanna says, hey, you can come over here if you want, because I'll be talking to you guys in just a second. So the following week, I'll be doing the same thing in Binghamton with the New York Conference of the United Church of Christ. Okay. The morning prayer is printed in your bulletin. Did you get one, Genesis, also? Beautiful. Okay, so we can pray it aloud and together, those who are gathered here today and also those who are joining us on social media. The words to the prayer will be on your screen, and for those of us in attendance, they are in your bulletin as we pray. Encouraging God, we seek courage from you in the presence of one another. As people who love imperfectly and are loved imperfectly, and who never fully live up to their high calling, we come to be encouraged to be the best version of ourselves we can be, one day at a time. Amen. So in a moment, you're going to hear The Man in the Mirror, which was popularized by Michael Jackson, but it was produced by Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, recorded by Michael Jackson, written by Glenn Ballard and Sienda Garrett. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of the lyric of that. I like the kids to stick around to hear a little bit of music before they scamper off to Sunday school, even if they don't understand it necessarily. But here, and this ties into the second part of the Serenity Prayer, which we'll be doing this week. Last week it was, God, grant me the courage to change the things I can. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. This week is courage to change the things I can, and then next week will be the final service the final part of that series. So, talking about courage to change the things we can, or courage to change the things I can. That will be the theme interlaced throughout the service. But here is, I believe, that same sentiment reflected in the song popularized, as I said, by Michael Jackson, part of which is this: I'm going to make a change, courage to change. I'm going to make a change for once in my life. It's going to feel real good. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, the wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man or the woman in the mirror. I'm asking them to change their ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. I've been a victim of the selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize that there are some with no home, not a nickel to loan. A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart and a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see. That's why I'm starting with me. You got to get it right while you have the time. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself. Then make a change. Man in the Mirror, performed by Craig Coyle.
Gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good, gonna make a difference, gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Na 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 na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize that there are some with no home, not a nickel to loan. Could it be really me pretending that they're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed up dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, then make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. You gotta get it right when you get the time, 'cause when you close your heart, then you close your mind. With the man in the mirror, I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Na 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 na. Gonna feel real good now. gonna feel real good now. Make a change.
I don't know, Craig. It sounded pretty good, but as soon as you started singing, one of the kids fell over sideways and was just laying on the pew. This one, so she's awake now. Okay. Do you want to come up here for a second? Come on up here for a second. Come on up. You don't have to. You listen to your mom. Don't listen to me. But as far as I'm concerned, you can stay where you want. Of course, the girls who stay with their mom and have their head leaned on their shoulder, they owe me $50. No? Okay. Have a seat. Champion. I like that sweater. Did you see the sweater? Champion. Okay, what's the opposite of a champion? What would be the opposite of a champion? Maybe. Well, what's the opposite of a winner? Who's that? There you go. Very good. Did you get a bulletin, by the way? Okay. You can't see it anyway. Okay. So, what is better, to be afraid or to be brave?
Brave.
And what do you think? What's better, to be afraid or to be brave? What?
What she said?
What she said, what your sister said. Okay? What do you think? What's better, to be afraid or to be brave?
Brave.
Brave. Okay. So let's imagine that you're in the woods on a walk in Africa. And you get separated from your family because you stopped to look at something and they didn't notice you stopped. They kept walking. So you're by yourself for a second. And then you hear, and that was pretty good, wasn't it? And then you look up, and there's a lion with big incisors, these teeth that once they're in there, they're not letting go. What would be your response? It would be to be really brave, right? Really?
Yes.
Yeah? And what would you do with this lion?
Tarzan mode.
Tarzan mode. Okay. Apple falls not far from the tree, Dad. Tarzan mode, exactly. Okay, he'd go into Tarzan mode. What would be better there, to be brave or afraid if the lion is going, ready to come at you?
Afraid.
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 Afraid. There's no right or wrong answer. Just what would you feel? I would not be afraid. I would be scared to death, is what would happen. Now, if somebody in your school said, I bet you can't get to the other side of the street before that truck comes by and hits you. What would you do? Would you do it?
No.
No? Would you do it?
No.
I'm afraid of the answer. Would you do it?
I would go, stop.
Okay, so he'd stop. He'd say stop to the traffic. And then, hey, here they come on in. They would, come on up. Try to catch you up in just a second. Panting, everything. Very good. Hispanic parade today at 11. Hi. Okay, so we're talking about we were saying, if you were in Africa and you got separated from your family and you were by yourself and you thought that they were stopping to wait for you and they didn't, they kept walking and they thought you were still with them, And so you look at something and you look up and you hear this. You like that? Pretty good, right? And it's a lion. Would you be brave or would you be afraid?
Brave.
Have you guys got a natural thing going on here. Okay. What do you think? Would you be afraid or brave?
Brave.
You'd be brave. Would you? Well,
I'll be brave.
you'd be brave.
I'd be afraid.
You'd be afraid. I don't know. Okay. Well, sometimes it depends on your age. Because when I was a young man, or a boy, really, I sometimes acted braver than I really was. Because I knew that my boy friends would say, "What a wimp," or something like that if I wasn't brave. So I would pretend to be brave. And I was from a military family, and I was the youngest one. So it's like, oh, I've got a man up here. I was like 6. But so I'd pretend not to be afraid because I thought that it was the right thing to do. But sometimes the right thing to do isn't so clear because people are saying, do this, do this, do this. You shouldn't. Boys don't cry. Girls don't get angry. There's all sorts of things that people say, come on, grow up, put on your big boy pants. I never, what? Where are they? Where are they? I'd go looking through my closet. Which are the big boy pants? They all seem to be, the big boy pants, if I put them on, they fall down because they're too big. So sometimes we're asking, like in that song, to have the courage to change. And sometimes the courage is to say, he won't even say it. Sometimes the courage is to say, I'm afraid. And then everybody says, oh, what a coward, or whatever they say. And I'll just say, okay, let it come, because if God gave me this feeling of fear, or if it seems appropriate to me, there's a lion in the woods. I was in Africa with my son in a Range Rover, and we were being driven around by this guy who had this big gun up on a bracket on the front of the car, and we went driving through, and we would see animals feasting on other animals. With blood all over their face because they just had dinner. We would see a white rhino stand and see us. They have bad vision, so they didn't know if we were like an enemy or a friend, or they didn't know, so they would turn and start coming at us. And my son said, quick, back up. And the driver said, you can't act like you're afraid because they'll see that as a weakness and they'll pounce on you. Well, just drive fast backwards. I can't drive backwards fast enough to get away from a rhino. And the rhino have a big horn in the front. He said, well, then just ram them. Put it in forward and just ram them. He said, that rhino is so strong, he could put his face under the front of the Range Rover and flip it with everybody inside. And my brave son was scared to death, but not as afraid as I was. Well, what's the courageous thing to do? We said to the safari leader in Africa with the gun there. Wait. Don't do anything. Don't fight. Don't run. Don't think. Don't worry. Don't laugh. Don't get out of the car and take off, that's for sure. Just wait. He said, well, you've got the gun. Can't you use the gun? And the driver, the guide we had on safari said, if I take this gun and shoot that rhino, I'll lose my job the next day. because I made a bad decision. That's not courageous. That's not brave. That's not the right thing to do. That's stupid. Because that rhino wants to protect, might have babies in the bushes. And our job, partly sometimes to be brave, is to say, that's wrong. That would make me afraid. I don't think that's smart. But how do we make those decisions? This is the end of this. How do we make those decisions? How do you decide when's the time to be brave or when's the time to admit you're afraid? Where do you get that information from? I'm putting you on the spot here. If you don't want to pass, just go hit the road. No?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know how? This is not easy questions. These are questions I struggle with every day. When do I stand up to them and say, you do that again? Or when do I say, stop? It's hard. One of the ways is with Miss Mary's help. One of the ways to decide is with the help of the church. One of the ways is to say, what would God have me do in this situation? It's not the only way. Because I am thinking about God when the lion's running at me. I'd say, oh, God, help me. That's my prayer. I'd be praying, oh, God, get me out of this situation. But sometimes I have to say, with God on my side, I might not always make the right decisions. I might be called names like chicken, coward, things like that. And maybe I am at that moment. And maybe I'm not. Maybe the brave, courageous thing to do is to say, no, I won't, no matter what you think. And one of the ways is to talk to your parents or to see what the church would teach you to do about how to stand up for yourself spiritually, even when you're facing the lions in the world, the bullies in the playground, the people who are being weird in the grocery store. It's appropriate sometimes. It's good to be afraid of things like that. Does anybody have a nightlight in their bedroom? Do you have a nightlight? Nightlight? Anybody have a nightlight? Okay. Is that good or bad to have a nightlight?
No.
No. Is it good or bad to have a nightlight?
Good.
It's good. It's good, you mean. Okay, why? Why is it good to have a nightlight?
If you're scared of the dark, you can turn it on.
If you're afraid, we need light. And that's one of the things that's a great idea. I had a nightlight for a long time as a kid. I don't sleep with a light night anymore. And that was a slow change. But for somebody to say to me when I was a kid, you shouldn't have a nightlight, would have been okay, and I'd turn it off and lay there scared to death that the lion is going to come out of the dark, or the boogeyman come out from underneath the bed, all of that stuff. But eventually, by learning how to do things and listening to people who are trying to help me, it can change. Courage to change the things we can. Is this for me? Oh, thank you. It's a lion. It's a lion from a lion puzzle piece. Beautiful. Okay. Did I do okay, Miss Mary? Okay. Would you like to take them now? They're all yours. No? Okay. Okay. Miss Mary's going off and you guys can join. Greg, do you need us? See you later. Children's sermons terrify me. It's the one part of the service that really scares me. Because you never know what you're going to get. And a lot of pastors don't do children's sermons. and I know exactly why. Whew. Okay. Anybody have a cool shower I could take? Okay. Scripture reading for today, Matthew 26:39, one verse. And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed. Who would throw themselves on the ground and pray? It's Jesus here. Going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet, not what I want, but what you want be done. So there was Jesus in the garden praying, please don't let this happen. I got a feeling this is not going to turn out well. You know, I have a feeling, as bad as it's been, and as much sacrifice and the stuff we've been through, it's going to get a lot worse. In other words, they might kill me. Please let this cup of fate, cup of bad luck, let somebody else drink of this cup. I have worked my life serving you. This part, give it to somebody else. And I'll stick around, and I'll do teaching, and I'll maybe get a farm and have a little school there for kids to come and learn how to grow vegetables. And just let this cup of fate pass away from me. But thy will, not mine, be done. And he didn't get his way. But had the courage to say, God, to get up, maybe intuiting, he was after all Jesus, okay, here we go. Got to face the lions. God grant me the courage to accept the things I can. Sometimes foolishness looks like courage. And courage looks like foolishness. Today we look at some of the attributes and the sources of courage, and we'll look at fear and the presence of courage, which I tried to do with the kids there. And God bless them for being willing to say, I'm afraid. Why do you have a nightlight? Because I'm afraid. The grown-ups who would never say, well, I'm not afraid. We got a soldier, this guy was a Marine. He still has, Dick Hare works with the Marines out in the Hamptons, retired Marine. So courage is a valuable tool to achieve much-needed change. If you want to change a world like we're in now, courage is not a bad thing to have. So welcome to part 2 of the series. Like last week we talked about God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So there it was, serenity to accept, and here it's courage to change. The big shift in one line of a prayer, written by Reinhold Niebuhr. And I told the story about a man who was standing at the seashore in Smith Point, and ranting. You know, the tide's coming in. He didn't want it to come in. Come on, you want a piece of me? You get one more inch further. And I became scared and I walked away. And then some other time, I think it was the next day or so, I went on a walk there again. I walk almost every day somewhere. And this time the tide was going out and he's ranting and yelling, don't leave me, don't leave me. So neither his threats, if you come any closer, you're going to get a piece of me. Nor his pleading, please don't leave me. Please don't fire me. Please not this diagnosis, whatever it may be. Please don't move to Chicago, son. I don't want to be without you, whatever it may be. The man lacked the serenity to accept, or the tide. He could not change. And that incident changed my life. I'll never forget that. And here it is in the sermon. Now, let me tell you another beach story. And this one you may have heard because it became an anecdote that rippled through the world, especially Christendom, but other places too. So you may have heard it before, but I bet you haven't heard it in a while. A woman's walking along the beach. The beach is littered with dead and dying starfish. Remember this at all? No? Good. So a woman's walking along the beach, and it's littered with dead and dying. I lived in Florida 10 years. There are red tide, and all of a sudden the beach will reek with thousands of dead fish. You know, these things do happen. So, bon appetit. So, I bet you turned into meativores right now. So, she's walking along. The beach is littered with dead and dying starfish. Periodically, as she's walking around and through them, and she picks one up and tosses it into the ocean. And a man was watching her and shouted, "Hey, lady, there's thousands of starfish stranded on the beach. Your efforts aren't going to make any difference." And the strolling woman didn't even turn to acknowledge him, just kept walking, reached down, picked up another starfish, threw it into the ocean. Then she turned to him and said, "It made a difference to that one." Clearly, the woman knew she was powerless to completely reverse a dire situation. But she had decided to change the things she can. No matter what a doubting onlooker was shouting at her from the sidelines, and no matter that she couldn't put a dent in the problem writ large. I'm going to make a change for once in my life. Look at the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror. I'm asking that person to change his ways. Don't try to recruit or coerce or convince the cynic sitting there on the beach saying, "Hey, lady, keep going. Do what you can." Many times we feel our actions will not matter and we shrug our shoulders and they say things like, "Can't fight City Hall. The way it is. They're all evil and corrupt. Out for your money. That's why I'm not doing anything about it. Can't fight City Hall." We also can give up on our dreams as if they're dead and dying starfish. We abandon our work at making a difference, sometimes without even trying in the first place to make a dent in our dreams. And maybe take one dying dream and toss it back into the nourishing water. We feel powerless to do anything about poverty and hunger on Long Island. 1 out of 7 children go to bed hungry on Long Island? It's true. Nobody doubts that. Statistically proven over and over by different agencies. It's not a political issue on one side of the aisle or not. 1 out of 7 children go to bed food insecure on Long Island. What are we going to do about all the children on Long Island? So many of us choose to make no difference whatsoever, and we walk away without realizing that when we offer even a single simple bowl of soup to someone or anyone, that one bowl of soup makes a big difference to that one hungry, malnourished starfish of a person in the soup kitchen. One. Only one. Well, how many people do you feed in the soup kitchen? I said, one at a time. I don't count the number of people we're feeding. We're feeding hungry people, period. One at a time. The person saving a dying starfish on the beach and the person serving a hungry person in a soup kitchen are changing the things they can. But let's think for a second about this serenity prayer. the word courage, like I was alluding to, like from a military family, the definition of courage, my father's, he's like, he said, annihilate the situation, clean it up first, and ask for forgiveness later. That was his policy. You just, go in. So, courage to change the things we can. Why courage? Does it really take courage to change? And the courage according to who? If some kids, and this happens all the time, it's not coincidence I talk to the kids about this, because bullying has been, is, and will be for the foreseeable future a huge issue in the lives of children. Peer pressure. Girls giving in. If you want to have a quarterback like you got to do this. And what do you mean you're not? Everybody else is. Get in the car. Get in the car. Nobody knows. What are the chances that they know that we drank or whatever it may be at the different stages? If you've been a member of this church long enough, you'll see that I would do this sometimes, and I would have parents. One parent didn't know his daughter was being severely bullied until he heard her say it in the Sunday school, not in the Sunday school, in the church children's sermon. And then, bang, it was Wisniewski. Forget their names. It was Sadie, yeah, who's now one of your voice students, right, Kathleen? So, does it take courage? The courage according to who? Not always does it take courage. It took courage to me to decide that I didn't fit in the world in which I was being raised. I just didn't fit. And my parents knew it. They got me a 410 shotgun and a 22 rifle. I was, I think, 10, 11 years old, and we would go out, and I would always aim low, never hit the squirrel, but we'd do the trap shoots. Bang, I'd be popping them off like this, but it's like, oh man, my father would say, Dwight, the world takes people like you and chews them up and spits them out, man. You got to toughen up if you're going to make it. You got to toughen up. And it just didn't fit. And I ended up doing this. And then my father's deathbed, he said, I always knew you'd be a minister. What? It's like he would be saying, I always knew you'd be a woman ballerina. It was like, what do you mean you always knew? He just said, I always saw it in you. He didn't know how to relate to it, but he saw it, and I had the courage to change, and he had the courage to accept. This is one of my kids. He's not going in the military. I can see it. When I was 8 years old, he could see it. So you can change a person's life forever by barging into a situation with guns or words blazing. You don't have to be shooting at somebody. You could go in there and yell at them and put them down so that they're just sort of the non-violent domestic violence victim. The hands-off abuse that children often get at a dinner table, where they just look at you in a certain way when you pick up the spoon or, whatever. You can come in with guns blazing, shoot first, aim later. But that's not courage. So why courage? Why didn't the prayer that Reinhold Niebuhr wrote say, grant us the fearlessness to change the things we can? Why didn't Niebuhr write, grant us the chutzpah to change the things we can? Only would this sermon in New York work. It doesn't take fearlessness to change the things we can. It doesn't take chutzpah to change the things we can. And depending on your definition, it doesn't even take courage to change the things we can. That's a catch-all phrase for me. What it does take, the way I see it, is compassion, empathy, and introspection that word that so many people just don't do nowadays. One of the reasons why churches are not full nowadays, one of the many reasons, is not only because we're failing them with music and and that now they have activities on Sunday and the bars are open. You can get alcohol on Sunday. Yeah. But another is like an introspective life where people are willing to look at themselves, to atone, to think about where they are in the situation and where they did right and where they did wrong, is not very popular. There's a lot of looking out there. Look, can you believe what they're doing? It's so the introspection to look and say, wow, maybe I can save one starfish. And I'm going to look like an idiot on the beach. Hey, guess what? I saved a starfish. Everybody else is plugging their noses because there's thousands that are dying. What a fool. The Apostle Paul said we are fools for Christ. What we're doing looks foolish in the eyes of the world. And what's going on in the world looks foolish to the person of faith. So get over it. You're going to be considered to be fools, doing foolish things. The Great Recession hit, and we were called upon to give more food, support, groceries, haircuts. COVID came. Everything closed. The Patchogue Theater, funded by $1 million bond, closed and fired all the staff. We kept everybody on payroll in this church. I don't know if you knew that. That was a decision of the trustees. We kept Jose, our custodian, on payroll. We kept the Sunday school director on payroll. Me, Craig. And Craig and I ended up working. We didn't miss a Sunday, but if we hadn't, I do believe we would have still been on payroll. That is foolish. Ask the Patchogue Theater. I still resent the Patchogue Theater for doing that. Nobody gave us $1 million bond to be doing this kind of work. It is foolish. So what? It's also courageous. Remember the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz? I did a picture of him on Facebook with the red ribbon in his hair. What makes a king out of a slave? Thank you for spinning. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? What makes the Hottentot so hot? What have they got that I ain't got? And then he goes, whoops. So he admitted, I don't have courage. That's why I'm going to see the wizard. To be granted by this fake emperor hiding behind a curtain and defrauding the entire village. I'm going to put my faith in Oz. We've got, what do you know, and the face and all that stuff. Talk about needing a nightlight. When I first saw that, I was like, whoa. And scared to death. But showed up, followed the yellow brick road, following a little girl who fell from, like, Kansas. Talk about loneliness. I'm talking about that when I go to Lake George. Loneliness is the theme of The Wizard of Oz. Why was she doing all this? Through the field of poppies when everybody says, no, just go to sleep, tune out, space out, smoke some reefer. Poppies is what heroin is made from. So that's why they couldn't lay down. They're laying down in a field of heroin. So no, just go through that. Go through the wicked witch. Go through all of that, the opposition, and the guy at the door who opens up the little... it's funny when you know that it turns out okay, but I wouldn't go in that door. Are you kidding me? But they did. And he got the courage because he had it all along. He got the brains because he had it all along. He had the heart because he was the most giving and loving and compassionate and empathetic person in the story. What was the motivation of all of it? Dorothy was lonely for home, for a sense of home. That's why people, I believe, come into church. Ultimately, because there's something here that I can connect with. And I can regret this and wish that and donate this and not donate that. All of this stuff, of course, eat a cookie, don't eat a cookie. But there's some sense of completion that we think we're going to get, or we wouldn't keep showing up, including me. With my degrees, I could be doing something else. You could be doing something else at this very moment. Craig couldn't because he knocks children unconscious when he plays the piano, but he could work on it. Many people claimed that if they could eliminate fear from their lives, then they would be more courageous. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. He didn't say what it was. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, courage is not the absence of fear. Yeah, courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Well, maybe. But if I feel the fear and do it anyway when I'm going to knock the you-know-what out of a lion, when I'm alone in the woods and 8 years old, that's like misinformed at best. He said, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something is more important than fear. So what to you, introspective, compassionate, empathetic people, is more important than fear? And where do you get it? Courage, to many spiritually inclined people of various faith denominations. We've had atheists in the choir. I don't even know if you knew it. He just didn't believe the words, but he loved the music. David Ludden. He was a great guy. And when they did the dodgeball thing and he got the fundraiser and they laid the tape, his kids were like, I can catch it, because there was no marker on the court, and they were smashing their heads into the wall and then acting, they manned up and didn't cry. You just smashed your brains out on the wall, kid. So, and rechange the lights in that ceiling? I couldn't do that. Could anybody else? They did all of that. He was an atheist. He was in Soli too, wasn't he? Singers of Long Island, where Kathy is a very good singer, really good man. So spiritually inclined people, including those who follow the Star of David, like Rochelle, who's visiting somebody today. Courage to many spiritually inclined people is depending upon God to guide us as we do the next right thing. It's right up on the window, right up here at the top. See the Star of David? 1893. So, like I was saying to the kids, there's many different ways. Listen to your parents, listen to your intuition, listen to your instincts, etc. But also, depending upon God, to guide me to the next right thing, because I'm not sure. Courage is demonstrating not what we can do, but sometimes courage is demonstrating what God can do through us. There, I tell you, I see it in every one of you, and I've seen it literally hundreds of times in the 3 churches I've served over the last 25 years. People don't have any clue about their strengths, about what we know really well, because the world likes it this way because they can keep us manageable. What we can't do, what we can't pull off, which is too bold to try, which is the odds are against it. Ugh. Just starfish. All of this stuff. Stay small. Don't try. It'll embarrass you. You're not a dancer. What do you mean you want to do dance? Why would we do this? All of that the world tries to do. But courage is demonstrating what God can do through us. Courage is not a way to bully our way to victory. It takes courage to realize, you know what it takes courage to do, and I'd love to see in the House of Representatives or the Senate or the White House? I would love to see somebody say, I just don't know. I think I'm wrong. But I'm praying that God will give me the right answer because I'm really kind of clueless. Have you ever heard that? You know, something clearly changes. And what they said last election cycle is just ridiculously untrue. Anybody hear any people complaining about tree huggers? Nobody's saying just a tree hugger. Everybody is scared to death about what's going on with the climate. Because we like, man up, tree hugger. Coal, dig, drill, fight, deny, overcome, win. The war, the epidemic of loneliness, we're going to defeat loneliness. Well, I hope there's no epidemic of joy. Are you going to defeat that too? Or we're going to defeat COVID. Remember that? The war on COVID, we're winning. Nobody's talking about winning a war on COVID. COVID's not going anywhere. We are, eventually. Everybody's going 6 feet under or ashes to ashes, but COVID will still be around. Maybe the courage is to say, how do we live with each other? How do I give, even if you use it against me? That's courage. Demonstrating what God can do through us. Not a way to victory. Realizing and accepting that God may not spare us from all adversity. That if we have the courage to speak truth to power or speak truth in a relationship, it may still not work out in our favor. So God won't spare us from all adversity. Anybody suffered adversity that they prayed wouldn't happen? And it happened? But God surely will guide us through any adversity we encounter. That's how you end up. I just got back from Rome with my daughter. Remember that we were looking at the Colosseum. The people who literally in that spot chose to be devoured by lions rather than renounce their faith. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Stephen was it Peter? Stephen said, we're going to crucify you. He said, well, do me a favor. Crucify me upside down because I do not deserve to be crucified the way Jesus was. And they crucified him upside down. So that's the dramatic, scary, bloody mess, but there's also little ways. I swear, it's abundance and faith is a river. And you can't keep taking out of the river just like you can't keep eating without going to the bathroom. You can't take inhales without exhaling carbon monoxide. You just can't do it. It's a flow. You donate 1 can of food. You donate 1 starfish of love. And it sets up a chain reaction that ripples out. A pebble thrown in the lake creates waves. You put a pebble in the ocean, it creates waves. Minuscule. Science teacher still, Genesis? So I'm really scared whenever Genesis shows up. She's called me to task, like scientifically. Well, like I had the thing that floated on water once. I said, how did we do that? And to the kids. And Mom says, you put oil on it or salt or whatever it was. What do you do? Do you remember that? You don't remember that. I'm glad you don't remember that because it was deeply humiliating to me to be so wrong in the children's servant. Thanks, Genesis. God is the source of strength and help and hope in times of trouble. Therefore, we need not fear. How many funerals have I said that at? God is a source of help, a refuge in times of trouble, you need not fear. It doesn't say you will not fear. You need not fear even at this cusp of burial, because God lives. And that love, all that was created, all that we create, cannot be destroyed. Therefore, we ask God to grant us, give us, because we can't give it to ourselves. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. And God, grant us courage to change the things we can. Amen. And now we're going to hear an anthem called Take Courage by our choir. Credit where credit's due. Christine DeMarco, Jeremy Riddle, and Joel Taylor wrote this anthem, Take Courage, and it was arranged by Ed Kerr and Dan Galbraith.
Slow down, take time, breathe in, he said, he'd reveal what's to come. The thoughts in his mind, always higher than mine, he'll reveal all to come. Take courage, my heart, stay steadfast, my soul, he's in the He's in the waiting, and hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing, he's never failing. Sing praise, my soul, find strength in joy. Let his words lead you on. Do not forget his great faithfulness. He's in the waiting. 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 He's in the waiting.
Let us now do what we have done every service without exception in the years I've been here and in the many, many decades before, and what Christians around the world are doing now. 12-step meetings are doing today, if not in the second. Pray the prayer aloud, those who care to join, that our faith tradition tells us Jesus himself taught to the original disciples. As we pray using whatever words with which you may be most familiar, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now, your financial gifts will be received gratefully. If you're unable to contribute at this time for whatever reason, know that your presence alone is a great gift. One of the most courageous songs I can think of. I invite you now to sing together. The hymn is on your bulletin and on your screen if you're joining us virtually.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome.
may be seated to receive the benediction, listen to the postlude, and then go get some cookies or enjoy the Hispanic parade on Main Street starting at noon, or do your bottomless mimosa thing, whatever. And now in our going, may the light of God shine down upon us and out from within us and bring us peace. And rest assured, God will see us through. God will see us through. God will see us through someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe that God will see us through this day. Go in peace. Amen.